Hello everyone, Coach Carole with you today. I'm really excited today. It's day one of the Personal Genealogy Network Challenge. Today's livecast is all about podcasting. Now, podcasting can change your life. It's certainly changed part of mine. Podcasts are a rich source of information about genealogy. And it's another way for you to consume your learning about genealogy research and storytelling. Now, a podcast is a digital audio file made available on the internet for downloading to your computer or a mobile device. So it fits well with your walking regime. You can just go to your podcast, switch it on, and listen. It's usually available as a series. So a podcaster will create podcasts over a period of time, maybe once a month, once a week, sometimes once a day. And new installments of these can be received by you if you subscribe to their podcasting channel. Now, podcasts are just one part of a rich source of information for your genealogy journey. So let's focus in a little bit more on how podcasting can help with your genealogy journey. I'm going to cover two main facets of podcasting that I find of interest, and I hope you will too. The first is all about how you choose your podcasts. One of the easiest things to do to start with is to go to Cindy's list. So just look for cindyslist.org and you will find many of her lists available for you. That saves a bit of time. In there, recently, I went looking for genealogy podcasts and I found that Cindy has organized them in different ways. Some are more general. So I looked under the general tab. Some she has organized by locality, which is of interest if you want to listen to podcasts about genealogy in those places that you do most of your research. For example, in my case, most of my research on my ancestors is done from the British archives. So I look for genealogy podcasts that feature those areas. Cindy also organizes lists by social media. And only recently I found a number of different podcasts that I could go and listen to that featured how to manage genealogy in social media. So that's one way for you to start today. And that's what I'm encouraging you to do, is take small steps one at a time and reach out to some of those podcasts that appeal to you. Another way to search is just using simple Google. When I put in my search field genealogy podcasts recently, it came up with the best 25 genealogy podcasts. And that was everything I needed. In there, I found some of my favorites, like Genealogy Gems from Lisa Louise Cook, but also a number of others that I've not heard of before. So I was able to go to those, collect the URL for each of them that I was interested in, and put those into my personal genealogy network. And as you may realize, I'm putting all that into my Trello board, which I'm encouraging you to try for your personal genealogy network. I create a card within a list and add the URLs and the title of that podcast. I have some tasks for you to do today or at any time underneath this live cast. Another thing that you might consider is the things you would look for when selecting the podcasts that you want to add to your PGN. For me, I'm interested in place. So that's certainly a big feature for me that I want to focus on. Secondly, the features, something unique for that podcast. Perhaps they're interviewing different people in different genres of genealogy that pique my interest. Then I look for the frequency of those podcast displays. How many episodes, how frequently do they appear? Is it monthly? Is it weekly? Or is it daily? I like to think that when I return to the podcast I've chosen to add to my PGN, that there will be more current podcasts for me to look at on my return. The next thing I look at is the number of followers. If I see that there are several thousand, and believe me, some of them do have many thousands of followers, that's another indication to me that this is a popular podcast and I should go and listen. And finally, for me, I like to look at the duration, the typical duration of their episodes. I like 30 minutes or less to fit into my routine for the day. Any more than that, I probably won't listen to it all. So choose some of those criteria when you are looking for your podcasts. Now, what about things to do while you are listening to the podcasts? And for many of us, we fit our podcast listening into our daily activities, say while we're walking or gardening or doing the dreaded housework or the cooking. It's a great opportunity to listen and learn for 30 minutes or so whilst you are engaged in some other activity. Podcasts are like your own personal radio station right in your pocket. But different to radio stations, you don't have to wait to receive that broadcast. You can get it at any time. It's on demand. Now, when you've finished watching and listening, I should say, to your podcast, what do you do then? For me, what I like to do is make some notes about what I've learned. And there are many lessons to be had in genealogy podcasts. And I also note who the person was that was being interviewed and follow that up by connecting with them. So I do advocate that you do make some notes after you've listened to the podcast. I have some favorites, and if you have received my email today, if you have opted in for that reminder, then you will note that there are several favorites of mine listed there. I'll put those underneath this live cast as well. Now, the second part. If you're really keen on podcasting, why not consider doing your own? I recently enjoyed learning how to create my own podcasts, and I did that as a project. I got some advice from many people, and I chose my podcast channel and began thinking, designing, and creating my podcasts. And that has now turned into my Essential Genealogist podcasts. And I'll put a link to those at the bottom of the live cast for you. But if you're creating your own, the first thing to do is to choose the channel. So whether it be Podco or Anchor or Listen Notes or some other tool, do some research on those. Have a look at which tool is going to suit you, suit the style, suit your budget. Yes, it will cost you some dollars. Being able to use a tool like this, though, is very beneficial to getting the word out. All you do is create the podcast and upload it to the platform, and they do the rest. They send it to the various podcast channels. that people might find you on, such as Spotify. When you're ready to consider your podcast, just start with something simple. Start with your own recording of your own voice. Maybe it's a story. Maybe your podcasts are going to be stories that you've created from your ancestral research. Now, I use Zoom to record my own voice, and that's a simple way to do it. And from that recording, I take the audio only. I then save that audio component, and I then take it through another piece of software called Descript. Now, this is a magical tool that enables me to edit an audio file by looking at text on the screen. It's really easy to do, and Descript is free. Once I have edited the audio file and it's ready as a project in Descript, I then simply upload it into my podcast channel. For me, it goes directly into Podco, and then I can add some details to it. And finally, at the end of the process of recording and uploading your podcast, you can share it with your network, which is, after all, the main reason you're doing it. So you might then embed that recording into your website or onto a blog page, for example. Then you might upload it to a repository, and I'm going to explore one called Collectionaire, which is something that I found out about in the recent Roots Tech 2022 conference. So more about that one later. So the process of creating your podcast is something that you might like to try. If you're already doing your stories for your genealogy research, maybe this is a new way for you to share what you have. So that's two different aspects of podcasts that I've chosen for you today. But do remember that I have many podcasts to share with you at The Essential Genealogist, and you can see that link scrolling across the screen. I like interviewing other genealogists and family historians and storytellers like yourselves. So if you'd like to be interviewed for any of those episodes, I'm looking for my interviewees right now. Drop me a line and let me know. Coming back to podcasting for your network, I think it's important that you do record which ones are most valuable to you in your PGN. This will enable you to go back to that list and have a look at the cards that you've developed with the links. It's all in one place. That's the whole idea of creating this PGN, so that you don't forget where you found that wonderful piece of information. I do hope you enjoy building your personal genealogy network with some podcasts. And I'm really interested to see what you post for us in the Facebook community today. So please let us know what you find on your researching for podcasts on genealogy. I'll be back tomorrow with another live cast, so stay tuned. I hope you've enjoyed today's live cast all about networking with podcasts.